Hi Libra, welcome to your September 2020 Astro Alchemy. It's Raina here. I just realized that I didn't put when the sun goes into Libra, and I should have. I should have done that. I guess it's on the 22nd this year, so I'll have to remember that. But the solar return, your solar return is happening in September. Of course, your true solar return is when the sun is actually in that exact degree of your sun sign. We could call this your birthday, but sometimes it's not exactly on that day. And this is a recording for Libra Sun and Libra Rising for both of y'all. So in September, we have some of the personal planets going into Libra. And this will, especially when the sun goes into your sign, you may feel a lot more energized and like yourself. As the month begins, the sun is actually still in the 12th house. And this is kind of like wrapping up your solar cycle that began in 2019. And by the way, if you're listening to this from a natal chart perspective, so if this is your rising sign, in other words, Libra, this is also going to be a kind of a new year for you when the sun crosses over into that first house. And that is going to vary from each Libra rising person. So an example of what I mean by this is as we begin a new cycle with the sun in Libra, even at the end of September on the 30th, the sun is at 7 degrees of Libra. So for those of you who are born in October, the sun is not in your first house yet, I think. I don't know if this would be true 100% because it does depend on the year of when it goes into Libra. But, that's a rough estimate. And so that's going to be something that still is affecting your 12th house until October. But depending on what your rising sign is, let's say your rising sign is 8 degrees of Libra. When the sun goes into, on October 1st, the sun is at 8 degrees of Libra. So that will be that new cycle for you with the sun. But also you have the new moon here. And that's going to be in October. So I'm not going to get too far ahead, but I just wanted to point that out. So I'm doing this in a more generalized way, but this will, hit you sooner or later. You can just get a basic feel for it in this time frame of September and October. And so on the 2nd of the month, we have a full moon at 10 degrees of Pisces. Now, for Libra, Pisces is your 6th house of work. And I actually think this is awesome because the 6th house in the universal chart is ruled by Virgo. So there's already this Virgo energy that is floating around at this time until the 22nd with the sun there, with Mercury there. And so it kind of is this grounded energy because it's an earth sign. It's kind of like organized. And a lot of us feel that sense of, those vibes in September because it's usually back to school, I would say. Now it has morphed into late August or maybe even mid-August for some people. But that feeling of, back to school, the back to school sales, getting your school supplies, that was always like such an exciting thing. And you may have personal planets in Virgo too. that are also making you feel that way anyway. So you may just feel an urge to be like kind of organizing your living space, or, even the way that you organize your days, like your daily routine may be something that is up for review now. And I would say especially, well, let me put it this way. I'm thinking in terms of just the general influence. That's a sixth house energy, but like the full moon specifically isn't necessarily thinking about it, but having something happen that brings it to your attention. Well, I guess that would mean that you would have to think about it. And this could be that however you have been living your life recently is coming to a close. So, and, just thinking of current events, I would say like shutdown related, where you've been working from home and maybe that was something you had to change. And it's funny because, around the time that you had a new moon here, this was in February, and this was, like that could have been, I don't know when the new moon in Pisces was. Was it March? Or was it February? And that was around the time when the shutdown happened. So anyway, I can't say that this is going to be true for everybody, but for some, this may be related to that. And now you're going back into the workplace. So maybe you're having more of a 9 to 5 type of a day versus really having to navigate that on your own. And so it could be something along those lines. It could be like getting a promotion, or finding out something about your job, ending a job, some developments with that. It could be with your health. The sixth house can be the health, and maybe wanting to purify yourself in some way. The full moon is kind of like having that effect. Ending some kind of diet or something along those lines. And the 5th, we're having Mercury go into Libra. So Mercury is going into your sign, Libra, and that's also good because you are a natural communicator, being an air sign. Having Mercury go into your own sign and into the first house means that you're able to communicate who you are, what you stand for, what you're about, a lot easier because it's in alignment with your sun. Or if it's with the rising sign, if it's in conjunction with the rising sign, it's in the first house of the self. So similar kind of influence. And that can be good for a number of things, including if you're looking for work, and you have to, they ask you those stupid questions about, can you tell I don't like those questions? You're able to answer them very well. And like I always use as an example when they say, what is your biggest weakness? And, heaven forbid you're as stupid as I was, and actually answered the question, because I actually thought that they wanted an answer to that question, an honest answer to that question. Boy, was I naive, right? And then I went the other direction and said, I'm just too idealistic, and I need to be more realistic about how other people operate, because I just tend to think that everybody's going to be like me. And then they looked at each other kind of smirking, oh, she's doing that one. And so, either way you get humiliated, I guess. I guess that's not a very positive way of looking at job interviews, but that's all I have for you right now. But there's nobody that is a better PR agent than Libra, but here you are being a PR agent for yourself. And that is just awesome. And even for, if you're meeting somebody on a blind date, maybe through some kind of dating app, maybe you'll be able to communicate who you are in a very appealing kind of a way. On the 6th, I can't say 6th. Venus goes into Leo, and that is a friendly angle to you because it's a sextile, fire and air, baby. And this is your 11th house of hopes and wishes, friendships, group associations. This is good for harmonizing with other people. It's good for finding love through social gatherings, and the friends that you already have. Maybe you'll find love through that, and being, harmonizing with friendships. If there have been any kind of weird things that have occurred, like a falling out, maybe you'll smooth things over now. On the 9th, Mars goes retrograde, and this is in Aries, your opposite sign. So that could affect the marital sector, the partnership sector that you rule in the universal chart. So this is your area. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be bad. Actually, it can be putting down the sword, if you will. If you have had some kind of a beef or a conflict with a partner, this may be a time that you are putting down your, kind of being more willing to not fight, but to get along, I guess you would say. And that can be very good for people who are kind of at war with one another. Usually Libra people, I don't think, like that type of situation. But I know a particular Libra that you have to look at other placements, because this person isn't always so lovey-dovey, and has gotten into seems to be in quite a battle with their partner, but I think they have gotten divorced by now. So in any case, that would have been in the past. And the thing is that Mars retrograde is more of a internalizing that aggressive energy. So it's very tricky, because you don't want to swallow your anger. And I think that Libra does. And I think that this would be a great time to examine your attitudes and your behavior around the issue of anger. And this is not only your anger, but other people's anger as well. Because in my feeling, and I don't think that this is going to be true for all Aries, because some of you, Aries, Libra people, some of you may have the moon in Aries. You may have placements that make you much less afraid to mix it up with others. And you have to look at the bigger picture here. But in general, I would say that Libra is a type of sign that wants everybody to get along, and they don't like conflict. And the problem with that is that is not how life works. It isn't. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. This is life. Life is a study in contrasts. Now, you could even say through metaphysical studies with, for instance, law of attraction, that this is a universe of contrasts. And for Libra wants things to be fair, and they want things to be harmonious. Well, both of those things are ideals, but they're not daily realities of life. There are things that seem unfair. I say seem because we don't know the bigger picture if they really are unfair, but at least in our mundane consciousness, they seem unfair. And there are things that are inharmonious that don't feel nice. And Libra wants to be nice. And they want to play nice, and they want others to play nice. And if somebody starts to get too heated, if you're having a discussion maybe about politics, Libra is the one in the group that says, okay, guys, let's talk about something else. And you know what? For me, that makes me just like get really pissed off, because I like debate. I do like debate, and it doesn't scare me one bit. But it almost scares Libra. So I want you to look at what scares you about conflict. I'm not talking about nasty things where people say cruel things to one another or physical assault. Obviously, those things are unacceptable. We're not talking about those. But anything that smacks of disagreement and that sort of thing. And how do you express anger? Do you pride yourself on not getting angry? I was just joking. My partner was talking about somebody that we know. Actually, the person that's connected to the sun in Libra, the other person has a moon in Libra. And they said that they never get angry. And there's a saying, you don't get angry, you get even. And that happens sometimes especially if you have Scorpio inner planets, where you may, as a Libra, say, I don't get angry. Everything is like unicorns farting, glittery rainbows and all this stuff. But if they have inner planets in Scorpio, or if they have the moon in Scorpio or something like that, where there's that kind of Scorpio rising, they may have a tendency to do things like that are passive aggressive, but even in some cases can have like a very vengeful streak in them. And this is where the shadow comes in. And Mars, it's interesting because Mars rules Aries, but it also co-rules Scorpio with Pluto. So Mars has a connection to Scorpio. And I have to explore this, but I have a feeling that Mars has a connection to revenge, because Mars can be about that being on a mission of some sort. And if somebody feels that they have to right the wrongs that are done, and since Libra wants everything to be fair, they may feel like if something has been done to them that it hasn't been fair, and they have this, Scorpio influence, there might be this thing of like, hey, this is not wrong, to seek, to try to balance the scales of justice, vigilante style. And what I would say to somebody who thinks like that is, I don't care about, a spiritual teaching about, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, or anything like that. What happens is that you lower your vibration to theirs. You sink to their level. So we don't have to get into biblical quotes here. We can just look at it logically. To me, two things can come up. The ego that doesn't want to be bested by somebody, dissed by somebody, and the feeling that it's unfair, and that because it's unfair, you have to react in kind. And so those kinds of attitudes should be looked at. You may feel like your anger is really inside of yourself. Find some way to release anger, because when it's retrograde, it's even more frustrated. And in that 7th house, it can relate to the other. On the 12th, Jupiter goes direct at 17 degrees of Sag. So Sag for you is another friendly angle of the 3rd house. This is of communication. So you may have been noticing that, when this transit began, I believe it was last December. I can't remember now. in Capricorn, and this is where you have a lot going on, that you are benefiting from things maybe internet related. This is the house of social media. The 11th house is also social media, where you have, or internet, where you have Mercury. I'm sorry, where you have Venus. So you may be benefiting from that as well. But anything that is related to, communicating, writing, teaching and learning, those kinds of things may now start to flow more easily and be expanded more easily. On the 17th, we have a new moon at 25 degrees of Virgo. So this is in your 12th house, and this may be a more quiet new moon, but it can relate to new spiritual endeavors, if that makes any sense to you. And so this is kind of like, I think, because the 12th house is the last house, whether there's a full moon there or a new moon there, it's kind of like the womb. It's kind of like the place that is waiting to be born again in a new cycle. And so to me, the new moon in the 12th house can actually be very important, can be fertile ground to create what you want to occur in the new cycle starting next month. And then on the 29th, Saturn goes direct at 29 degrees. On the 29th at 25 degrees of Capricorn. So this is another placement in that third house. And this is great because now you can move forward with your discipline for these endeavors that relate to writing, that relate to maybe learning something. Perhaps you kind of eased off of training, a training for something that gives you new skills and that kind of thing. And now you're able to move forward because you know exactly how you want to proceed. So I hope that you enjoyed this, Libra. I hear the hum of the leaf blower, so I'm going to sign off. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.